Hi, this is Randy Wykoff, the Dean of the College of Public Health at East Tennessee State University, and I'm pleased to provide this week's update on the COVID-19 pandemic for Tennessee, Virginia, and the Appalachian Highlands for the week of October 4th, 2020. Before we start, I'd like to extend our very best wishes for a fast and complete recovery to the President, the First Lady, and to all the people around our country and around the world impacted by this pandemic. You know, in the United States, we saw a rapid growth rate early on that's been slowing down. This week it's growing at about 2.4% a week. That means if there were 100 deaths last week, there would be 102 deaths this week. We'd like to see that number get well below 1% before we have some confidence that we're at the end of the pandemic. If you look at Virginia, it's come down quite a bit. A little bit higher than the U.S., suggesting that the pandemic is still spreading in Virginia a little bit faster than in the rest of the country. In Virginia, there was a rise in cases, and then it slowed and now been fairly level. But again, cases are largely dependent on testing. So if you look at deaths, you see this bouncing ball effect where we continually have it looks like it's coming down, then it goes back up, and it comes down, and it goes back up. And that tells me that the pandemic is spreading into different populations across the state. And this is a map that shows all of the cases since the pandemic began. And then I transition into those that have been in the last couple of weeks. And again, you can see an evolving nature with it affecting different parts of the state now. Hopefully, we'll start seeing a lower percent growth rate. But for the moment, it still remains a significant pandemic in Virginia. In Tennessee, we've seen this growth rate drop, but not quite down to the level that we saw in Virginia or the U.S. overall, hovering more in the mid 5 to 10% range, suggesting that we're still seeing an evolving pandemic, a growing pandemic in Tennessee. In terms of cases, grew later and has been fairly level. But again, cases are not as illustrative as deaths. And with deaths, you can see the steady growth rate of the daily deaths. We're not coming down yet. We're not on the other side of the hill. So this is still an evolving pandemic for the state of Tennessee. This is the counties in Tennessee that have had all the cases since the beginning. And I'll transition into those that have been in the last couple of weeks. And again, you can see this evolving nature where it's starting to impact the rural areas more. And that tells me that the pandemic is spreading out. Hopefully that'll produce a leveling of the growth rate. In terms of the Appalachian Highlands, we've seen a fairly typical pattern, the same kind of shape of pattern that we've seen in other parts of the United States, with almost 50,000 cases now and a 7% increase in the past week. And the same with deaths. If you look at the death rate, we've been growing pretty consistently, and this week hitting 800 deaths with an 8% growth rate. So that's the growth pattern in Virginia, a little bit higher than in the U.S. That's the state in Tennessee, again, quite a bit higher at 7.5%. And if you level out the Appalachian Highlands, you can see that, again, it's about the same, a little bit worse than the state of Tennessee. So the pandemic is not over in our states. It's certainly not over in our region. We need to continue to be vigilant, continue to do the things that we know we need to do to protect ourselves. We've had almost 200,000 cases in Tennessee and 2,500 deaths, 150,000 cases in Virginia, 3,000 deaths. And in our region, that should be 46,000 cases, and not 464,800 deaths. It's a serious pandemic. It's continuing to evolve. We are not out of the woods yet. There's a great deal more information about COVID-19 on the College of Public Health website. If you know anyone who'd like to be added to our mailing list, please let us know. And I'd like to thank Melissa White for updating this week's slides and Dara Young for editing, producing, and posting them. As always, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, please let me know. Many of you send me emails. I try to answer them directly. If there are issues of broader importance and concern, I'll incorporate them into the future videos. I appreciate your questions, and I look forward to trying to find an answer. Thank you very much.